لم تألو جهدا السفارة النمساوية في تقديم المساعدة الإنسانية للاجئين السوريين واللبنانيين أيضا للشعب اللبناني وتحفيز النشاطات الثقافية والفنية بإشراف وإدارة سعادة السفير بول ايمريه، وهو الذي يعشق لبنان منذ أن عاش في ربوعه مع أهله. Excellency Ambassador of Austria to Lebanon, Mr. Rene Paul Emery, most welcome in our morning show on time in Mariam TV platform. Thank you for being among us.
Good morning, Mr. Malouli, and thank you for having me.
You lived in Lebanon before being a diplomat between 1978 and 1982. Why?
That's right. I came in 1978 with my parents. My father was the Consul General in Istanbul at that time. And he was transferred to Beirut in 1978. At the time, the embassy was
as ambassador or
as an ambassador. Yes.
As ambassador. Yeah.
At the time, our embassy was in the Najib Trad Street near Tabaris.
Also now it is there.
We're still in Tabaris, but
there?
It's another building.
In another building.
So it used to be an old Ottoman house, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. And we stayed there for a year, and later on, due to the fighting, because this was the time of the 1978 100 Days War in Ashrafiyeh, where Ashrafiyeh was under siege.
Yeah.
We got several hits at the embassy.
Wow.
And we were requested to move. And at the time we moved to Ainetin. I continued my Ainetine. I had started at the Grand Lycée in Ashrafiyeh, and I continued my studies at the Collège Protestant in Hamra.
This means you lived the civil war with us in Lebanon during your childhood or adolescent age. What kind of memories you keep in your mind about this period?
Well, of course, children see things differently. We see things with different eyes. I remember that sometimes we would have to miss school due to the fighting. We would sleep at our friend's place. Sometimes it was a bit difficult to get to school. My mother wanted me to learn to play piano, so there were days where the piano teacher could not come.
Sometimes no school.
Sometimes there was no school at all.
Yeah.
But I mean, the strongest memory I have is the suffering of our neighbors and the people who lost their loved ones and their friends.
How did it affect on you?
I would say this was one of my strongest childhood experiences. First, the time in Ashrafiyeh, which was a time of trauma. I remember it was very difficult for the children at the time.
You suffered from trauma?
Not me, but others. Of course, the children who had family members that they lost. The time in Ashrafiyeh was particularly difficult. Yeah. And later on, when we moved to West Beirut, I remember coming to the Collège Protestant. And at that time, the Collège Protestant was like an island of openness and tolerance, because you had all the different communities there.
Yes, of course.
People were much more open, and of course, it was also the time where there was less fighting. In Ras Beirut, so things were easier for us as children. But
more quiet, more calm.
It was more calm in terms of where the fighting was at that moment, and also I was impressed by the kids, because they were open towards the kids of other communities, which I hadn't experienced before that.
How long have you been here in Lebanon as a diplomat?
I came in September 2020.
Yeah.
After the blast, we were supposed to come in mid-August, but after the terrible event that happened on the 4th of August, We postponed because we didn't know what to expect. We knew that the embassy had been very heavily damaged, the residents as well. So in order to wait for more information to come in, we waited a little bit. We also have two kids that are now in an age to go to school.
Yeah, you lived here with your family now.
Yes, my family is here with me, and I'm very happy about that.
You have one boy, one girl, no?
I have a boy who's 15 and a girl who's 13.
Bless them.
Thank you.
The situation in Lebanon isn't easy at all right now, especially in absence of a President of the Republic and government. Comparing with that time and the Civil War days, is it worse now?
It's hard to say if it's worse or if it's easier. I think the problems are just
because
different.
the economic crisis also, it's like a war.
The economic crisis, I think, is stronger than the bad economic situation which you had back then. But of course, when you have fighting, when you have people killing each other, this affects people psychologically.
Sure.
So the problems are different.
We suffer psychologically. Until now, we are suffering. Are you cooperating with the European Union to support Lebanon with humanitarian aids? You already offered a great help during the pandemic.
Well, actually, we are working on 3 different levels. As members of the UN, we contribute through the World Food Programme, through other agencies of the UN, UNICEF, UNESCO. Then, of course, as a member state of the European Union, we contribute through European Union funds. And then, of course, there's also bilateral help. And after what happened on 4th of August 2020, before that, the focus was mainly on the Syrian refugee situation. The focus changed a little bit because there was more consciousness about the Lebanese crisis being a crisis of its own. And the assistance that is arriving to Lebanon now on a bilateral basis is partly it's just focused on Lebanon, and partly the help that used to be for the Syrian refugee population is now to 50% for Lebanese families.
Yeah.
So there has been a lot of adaptation since that.
You used to be active in humanitarian field by helping Syrian refugees and Palestinians, but now Lebanese people are more in need. Yes. What are you working on in this concern?
Well, I think it would be dangerous to neglect the situation of the refugees because, of course, they are living here in this country. So we have to continue to help them. I think the country cannot afford to have people on the streets who cannot feed themselves. So we have to continue to and even upgrade this help. But at the same time, there is consciousness, and not only in Austria, of course, in the European Union, also with other donors, Canada, Switzerland, that the Lebanese population needs a lot of help. We mainly concentrate on humanitarian help now.
Every family is in need now.
Every family is in need, but I think at the end of the day, this is not enough. At the end of the day, what we are doing now is humanitarian help. But we need now the conditions in Lebanon to be conducive to have other type of help, to have to support the Lebanese economy. But this won't be possible if the steps that are necessary, and these steps are very clearly laid down by the IMF, if these steps are not taken. So everyone in the donor community is expecting action on the part of Lebanese stakeholders. And otherwise, this help will continue on a humanitarian basis, but it will not be enough to relaunch the country.
What kind of challenges do you face nowadays in Lebanon as a diplomat?
Well, there are the general challenges that we had with the COVID, and coming to a new country as an ambassador. Of course, the idea is that you're going to to make contact with people, to come to know people.
Yeah.
And that was difficult under COVID conditions. Still, I think I was able in the first 3 months to establish the contacts that were needed in order to operate properly as an ambassador here. And apart from that, of course, you have specific challenges in Lebanon. One of these challenges is that the public sector has, to a great extent, stopped offering the services, and also in terms of the workforce, people cannot afford anymore to pay transportation to go to the office. You come to ministries, you only have a few even very dedicated individuals. I must say I have a lot of admiration for Lebanese public servants, and specifically also for my colleagues in the Lebanese diplomatic service, who are doing their best to keep up at least a minimum of presence and of services. But at the end of the day, it's not possible to have a functioning state just with a few dedicated individuals who are practically working for free. You need much more than that, and for that we need to relaunch the Lebanese economy. So I think the situation is a very urgent one. There is a need for action, and the country cannot wait because the people deserve better.
Thank you. What kind of activities you sponsored?
Well, as an ambassador here, there are two main focuses that I've had. One is humanitarian. There has been a lot of need for information, and embassy also is something like a bridge between our capital that needs information and Lebanon, meeting people, organizations, institutions that need help and that present projects. So this is one of the things we've mainly focused on, and the other thing is cultural work. Austria is mainly known for music, so we focused
opera music, classic music,
opera, and I know you told me yourself that you're a fan of classical
when I
music.
visited Austria, usually I watch an opera night.
So we've been able to jumpstart a very close cooperation with the Conservatoire.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not easy. It's not easy because many musicians have left the country. We can bring in a musician, we can bring in a singer, but if you don't have a functioning orchestra to play with these musicians...
But you've worked on organization, many concerts, no,
yes,
in Lebanon.
Yes, still we are working, for example, with Les Musicales de Baghdad, who've been very faithful and dedicated partners, and of course the Conservatoire, the festival. Now we will have, for example, a concert with famous clarinetist Mr. Ottensama on Wednesday. We are working on preparing the next season of the Musicale de Baghdad. We've also made a point of not only presenting the concerts in Baghdad, but also doing work here in Beirut. And apart from the musical work, we produced a film with Carmen Labaki, the famous Lebanese film director, about Austria in Lebanon. So we look at the history of that unites our two countries, and we look at the stories of Austrians, expats who've been living here for the longest time, married to Lebanese, and
we have to watch this movie.
This will be on TV in October, November, and after that it will be open access. You will be able to see not only this film, but all the films of Carmen Labaki about the world in Lebanon. So you have, for example, Belgium in Lebanon, Brazil in Lebanon, and the latest one is Austria in Lebanon.
Austria and Lebanon. What is common between Lebanon and Austria? The music, I think.
The love of music, the love of culture, of course. I think you are people person. You're people persons, and we are people persons. We live between several worlds. In Austria, we live between Eastern Europe and Western Europe. We live between Germany and Italy.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of worlds
of beauty of nature.
You have the natural part. We have the mountains, skiing, like in Lebanon. We like good food. But what I would like to stress, and what is, I think, the main point, is that both countries are between worlds. Lebanon between the Mediterranean world, between Europe on the one side and the Middle East. And this is something that you have been very good at maintaining. I've lived in Egypt, for example. Egyptian children nowadays, they learn about pharaonic history, they learn about their Islamic culture, but they learn, unfortunately, very little about the Mediterranean dimension and about what connects them to Europe. But this is very different in Lebanon. I mean, you are what I would call the last piece, the last surviving piece of the old Levant.
Yeah. And the last question now, do you receive a migrant request from Lebanon to Austria or university application to study?
Yes, we have, of course, a lot of talented young Lebanese applying for studies in Austria. We also
Does
have
the
a lot of
embassy offer scholarships?
Not the embassy, but we do have grants that can be offered to very talented students or students with financial needs. And yes, there are students coming, and not only students, but for example, now we have in Austria a leadership seminar where you have professors from Lebanon, from in this case from AUB, traveling to Austria to participate in conferences. Vienna is also a hub for medical tourism, so we always have applications by doctors, by people working in the health sector to come to Vienna. Of course, Vienna and Austria being a touristic hub, we always have Lebanese who are either coming to ski in winter, like now.
But did you encourage the Austrian citizens to come to Lebanon?
we
for
do
tourism?
We do, but I think if you look back at the 1970s, Lebanon was a reference point for tourism. In Austria, a lot of people knew about for Europeans, not only Europeans, but people would come to enjoy culture, to enjoy the country. But the civil war in the 1970s, 1980s, unfortunately, changed this image, and I think in the future, Lebanon has a lot of potential as a tourist hub. But I think there is a lot of work to be done.
We hope, yes. We count on you. Very good luck, Excellency, Ambassador of Austria to Lebanon. Thank you for being our guest today in Mariam TV.
Thank you very much, Mr. Malouli.
Thank you.
I was happy to be here.
دقايق وبنرجع منتابع آخر فقرة.